You should say, oh, there we go.
Yep.
So we are live, ladies and gentlemen. And sometimes, Valerie, it takes a little time for people to join us. And so welcome to another live stream. I got the
Thank you.
beautiful Valerie. How have you been?
Very well, thank you.
I was
It
with you at the beginning of the month, and it was good to see you.
was really good to see you too. It was a really enjoyable class and lots of new students. It was very exciting. They're always exciting.
Well, I could tell that you're a veteran because you had all your stuff ready. That was my first time going to
Oh, I stumbled in with my first one with cards and a couple of things to show and no equipment to sell, and then yours was blowing it out of the water with his setup, and I said, "Oh, I can do better." And so, not better than him, but better than I had done the first time.
Yeah.
And so I had a better table this time for sure.
Well, yours was blown it out of the water again this year too,
Yep.
and which is great. I mean, fantastic equipment that Martin System offers, and we're talking about the Napopo New Silver School that both of us attended in Springfield, Missouri, at the first week of June. And are you going to be at the November school as well?
Yeah, I plan to be. I'll be in the Netherlands with them in August, and then probably again in November.
Okay.
I really enjoyed teaching working with the coaching program after class to help people understand the material so they do well on the tests. It's been really rewarding, and a lot of people have been doing well with it.
Well, and I took all the tests again. It was 2018 when I first went to Silver School, and then I'm happy to report that I did very well on my tests this time too. But they were still very nerve-wracking. You know, those tests are something else.
I still have not ever gotten a perfect score on it. But
I didn't get a
no
perfect
matter how
score
many
either.
times I do them, I always find a couple that the questions are designed to help us think as well as just know the answer. And
Yeah.
I always end up overthinking two or three. And that's a good thing.
Well, today we're going to focus on a couple subjects. One of the subjects that I know that you're knowledgeable in. Well, first off, do you want to introduce yourself, Al, and tell everybody a little bit about you? And I'm going to share this. That's typically what I do is go to my Facebook page and I share it to my personal profile. And anybody that's watching it now, if you wouldn't mind sharing our conversation as well, it'd be much appreciated. And while I do that, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody where you're at and what you're all about?
Sure. I'm Valerie Ann Erwin, and I've been training horses before dogs, and dogs non-professionally because I started with pet dogs at home and uh, competition, luring with the sight hounds, and so therapy dog work and training my own service dogs for the past 20, 30 years. And then about 9 years ago, 8 years ago, I started uh, getting help for myself with a first problematic dog I'd ever had. And it was a rough situation. I'd been sick and came home from the hospital with my dog being unwell. And the help I got inspired me to uh, dig deeper and truly enjoy training dogs and training people as well. And I've been deep diving into that for the past 8 years. I study and teach at the Canine Human Relationship Institute with Nelson Hodges in Texas, and
Okay.
have worked with him for about 8 years, 7 years now, maybe eight. And then I'm also studying with Barton Michael Bellin in the Nepopo system, and two what may appear as polar opposite systems really truly appeals to me because I feel like the relationship with the dog and the dog's desire to work and to desire to interact and desire to be connected is incredibly honored by both systems. And
I,
I think they really complement each other.
I do too. In fact, somebody was asking me about, and I just posted up a link to the Canine Human, what is it, resource or no,
Relationship Institute.
Relationship Institute, CHRI.
Right.
And I think they dovetail very nicely with the stuff that they teach you in the Napopo school. And so check them out. And I've done a lot of live streams as well with Nelson, and they're very popular. So I posted up a link both to CHRI as well as NAPOPO in the comment section below. And I highly recommend both of them. In fact, I have to go back to, I've never been down to Texas with Nelson. I've had him up here at my property, and I love him. He's a true mentor, and I hold him to a very high esteem, just as much as I do Bart and Michael. They're definitely people that I recommend you getting further learning from, and especially with how to read the dog with Nelson.
Yeah.
And then techniques and understanding the science behind everything is like NAPOPO. There's so many things that they're just, it just makes sense to mention them together.
I'm super interested in, and all of the trainers there, because I also study a lot with Marina Ozuna and Mark Goldberg and Brother Christopher. And we're all super interested in the health of the dog, the welfare of the dog, making sure that our dogs are super healthy through good diet and whatever. I just had both of my big dogs. I have a Great Dane and an Irish Wolfhound mix, and I just had them to the holistic veterinarian on Friday. They both get a chiropractic treatment, which isn't like with twisting and stuff. It's more of an acupressure around the spine and release of tension around the spine. And then Dora gets acupuncture as well as the chiropractic, because she has bad hips. Yesterday was her 8th birthday. For a dog that size to be healthy at 8 through good diet and that kind of care, it leaves her potential for doing amazing training and drive training still intact. And Lagatha has it too. Lagatha's very, very healthy. She doesn't have any issues with the spine stuff like the other one does, because she's got a genetic fault.
I've seen them work on chiropractic with the dogs, and they had this little thing that they would take down their spine.
Yep. It has almost an air pressure, similar to, when they take the pressure in your eye. When you get your eye exam done, the ocular, to test for glaucoma, it looks and sounds very similar to that air puff to me. And it only seems to bother the dog when the dog is tight. Once they've done it and it's loosened up, and they go every 3 months for the chiropractic treatment. And I can't remember the name of the pen with the poof in it. And they go, Dora will now start going monthly for the acupuncture. But I think those things are really important to integrate into it, because we don't get it. Dogs just perform better in every way, whether it's pet dog living with their owners and experiencing life with their owners and interacting with other dogs. All animals make better choices when they feel well. So I think that's an important part of the process.
I make better choices when I feel well.
Right. So, me too. So I do promote a lot of health and nutrition as well as the training in my programs. And I'm very much like the working for their food model that NAPOPO brings, because I enjoy training the dogs in drive, all of them, whether it's their low drive or their high drive, but it's the dog's own state of mind that we're enhancing, not trying to create something like not natural for that dog.
Yeah. And I posted up in the comment section a link to New Skeet, the Monks of New Skeet, as well as Mark Goldberg, dogtrainer.com. Anytime that we mention, I want to make sure that we have resources in the comments down below. And one of the first things that I do, especially if I'm dealing with some type of new behavior with the dog, is I want to get them a health checkup, and I want to see what's going on behind the scenes, and if we can address some health problems. A lot of times we see behavior issues kind of subside, and it makes sense, right? And especially for my older dogs, I want to get a senior panel done. I want to check for any UTIs and stuff like that, just to ensure that we're not dealing with a dog that's in pain, and I'm not going to aggravate the situation based on an underlying health factor that needs to be considered.
Yeah, I typically require them to have a good health check before they come in if they're, not a young dog, or if they're experiencing behavior problems, especially those that might be related to tick-borne diseases where I am. There's a lot of humans and canines are incredibly, the horses too, are incredibly adversely affected by the tick-borne diseases that are where we live. So it's really important for me to have that ruled out and that they're on a good diet, because bad diets can make bad behaviors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, right?
I never heard the GIGO thing, but that makes sense. I like that.
And I was just talking to a bird dog hunter today, a guy in his 70s, and one of the things that we were chatting about was like going out pheasant hunting in the different areas. It's not just the birds that are different, but it's the considerations. And one of the things that he mentioned, especially going hunting in Michigan and back east, was ticks.
Yep.
And so I want to pull up, let's pull up a map, and that's what I want to focus our conversation on today. Primarily is the ticks, because I think that a lot of people would benefit from knowing a little bit more about what areas have the ticks. And this one's from 2017, so it's about 5 years, and I would imagine that they're in the same areas, maybe a little bit larger.
Yes.
And so we see predominantly in the north, east, and in the east, well, in the northeast, and in the north, central north areas are the hot spots for this tick stuff. And what are some of the diseases that we are considering with the tick-borne diseases? What are they?
So I was blowing up the map to see. When I did introduce myself, I failed to say that I live in the southern part of New York State, along the Hudson River, just east of Connecticut and 2 hours north of New York City. So I'm right in the middle of that eastern red zone.
Wow.
And that part of New York and Connecticut now is home to hosting not just Lyme's disease, which was the first tick-borne disease that we talked a lot about, 30 years ago. I think we started talking a lot about it, but now we have anaplasmosis, which was a low incidence thing back when. Now it's much more prevalent, and it's throughout that entire red range. We have anaplasmosis, ehrlichiosis, and babesiosis. They used to be more of in the south and super east, like out on Cape Cod and Long Island, areas of that red in the east, but now it's all up through the rest of it. So when I'm missing one, babesiosis, ehrlichiosis,
Which one is Rocky Mountain?
and Rocky Mountain spotted
That's
fever.
rickettsiosis. Oh, no, that's rickettsii, or
It's a rickettsia.
rickettsia, right?
Yeah,
And
so is Lyme, is a rickettsial disease. So we often, in the old times, we all thought about, up until I think the 80s, even if you were getting married, you still had to have a syphilis test in advance of getting married, because they wanted to control the incidence of syphilis and be able to treat people before they got married, so they wouldn't have syphilitic children. And I think I was probably in the last generation of people that had to have that test done before they got married, which would have been in the early 80s. Syphilis and Lyme, the spirochete diseases, it's not rickettsial. Rickettsial is definitely Rocky Mountain spotted fever, but I was thinking the spirochete, the bacteria forms that look like a spiral. Syphilis is the same kind of in the same family, and all of those different diseases eventually attack the neurology, the brain, brain function, behavioral function, motor function, and the ability to focus are the first signs that it's becoming neurological. And at first, symptoms would be, achy joints and flu-like symptoms when somebody is first infected. And when you wait too long, you can have seizures and passing out, and the bacteria living around the brain and in the spinal column and infesting into the whole neurology of the body. definitely don't want to let it get to that point. And unfortunately, a lot of humans are stoic and they expect the same from their dogs. And dogs are naturally stoic. They don't want to show, most of them don't want to show when they're in pain because it's a bad for the pack kind of instinct. And they might push me out if I'm sick. They may not mate with me if I'm sick. They may not share their food with me if I'm sick. So they hide it. We want to keep a really good eye on if our dogs are limping chronically. You know, they get an injury once in a while, running weird or doing something fun. But if they're starting to have chronic issues, you always want to get a full tick panel, not just the screening. Get, you know, if they don't find something in there and there's no other what's the word for it? There's no other solution
Symptoms.
that comes to mind. You know,
Okay.
X-rays are clear. There's no ripped muscle. There's no other symptoms. Then it's really important to get the full serology on those diseases, especially by us. You know, I
Well, it
realize
looks
there
like
are parts of the country that aren't as nearly as critical.
Well, it looks like the biggest thing is fatigue, joint pain, fever,
That's the
right?
start. Yeah.
Right, and then skin rashes and migraines.
Yeah.
But how do we know when a dog has a migraine? How can you tell when a dog has a headache, Val?
I think that I know what a headache feels like for me. I had neurological Lyme's in around 2008. I had to have intravenous medicine twice a day at home to get rid of it. And the headaches that it caused, well, they make a certain kind of a crinkling of the forehead and tension about everything. And the dogs can make the same kinds of facial pain when they've got headache or back pain, or, and sometimes it looks just expressionless, but then, you know, critically wrinkled across the eyebrows. My Malinois, I have the second one I acquired. I adopted her from somebody who, in my town that was trying to find her a new home because she had adopted it off a telephone pole in New York City, a posting, and brought it home, and it was ripping up their house and crazy. And she was 4 weeks postpartum, no puppies, uh, Ehrlichia positive and heartworm positive, quite ill
My
with it. She
goodness.
was crated for 6 months because of the heartworm. She's a delightful dog, but she was, if you look at the pictures of her when she was sick to how she looks now, I'll send you them later, comparison. You wouldn't even think it was the same dog because the stress face of the dog that was sick in pain was, it wasn't a I'm afraid, it was a I'm in pain. And it's a really remarkable recovery.
Oh, yeah, and if anybody that's watching now, first off, let us know where you're watching from in the world, because I always find it interesting to see how far this show reaches. But if you have any questions or anything, any comments about your experiences with tick-borne diseases in your dog, please let us know, and I'll go to the comments here pretty soon. But isn't it remarkable, Val, how dogs can change? You know, I've had so many work with rescues that have had dogs that are severe neglect cases that literally have no hair on their body, and like really thick, almost leathery skin.
Right.
And after a year of care, and like you don't recognize the dog beforehand, the picture, and then I've had a dog run out, and people are like, "Who's this dog?" And that's that dog in the picture. And it's pretty amazing how resilient these animals are, and I think that it's pretty amazing how resilient we are as well. And keep in mind too that this can be, what do they call it, zoological? I mean, where
Yes.
we can both get it. Can we get a disease from the dog itself, or do we have to be bit by the tick as well?
We have to be bitten by a tick because it has to go through a nymph phase where it starts out as an egg and it grows to its juvenile state and it grows up inside of the tick. And when the tick spits it into its victim, it then matures like malaria inside of the, well, not in a blood cell like malaria does, but inside the person's body into its full effective demonic shape. So, you know, they have to go through cycles of their life cycle in the tick and in the human, or in the tick and in the dog. Would you like me to turn off the light, on the light like
You're
that's in
kind of
front of me?
Yeah, you're kind of getting a little
Because
dark
I'm
there.
just hearing the background in my blood
I
sugar.
was just going to make sure that I was going to wait till you got a little darker, but if you mentioned it, absolutely. And then some of the symptoms that we see also, so we're talking about the Lyme disease is fever, rash, joints. That's where I've seen it, is where the dogs they thought it was arthritis and it was Lyme disease. And then there also is Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And just like the Lyme disease, headaches, rash, and muscle aches, right?
Yeah. But they can
And
start out with really, really bad diarrhea. I took my dog to the vet in Vermont. I was visiting my daughter. We'd been at New Skeet and I went to Burlington. And the night I got there, he had a bit of diarrhea. So I took him to the vet, and her vet. I'd never met her before. And in the morning, I woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and the dog looked like he was dying, and blood coming from his nose, from his butt a little bit, and couldn't breathe. It looked like he was in congestive heart failure, which a Great Dane at 8, maybe they could, or 7, I think he was, could get that. It's not an atypical thing. And I put him in the car and I took him to the vet, and I was waiting in the parking lot when they arrived. And they said, if you hadn't been here yesterday, would not have believed that this dog would be this sick this fast. He was near dead. It was terrible. He had 108 temperature and no platelets. So he was bleeding, and they went and ran and did a Rocky Mountain spotted fever test, and it came back positive. They don't even have it there, but they recognize the symptoms of the diarrhea transition to pneumonia and flooding, losing the platelets, bleeding from the places where they need the platelets are a clotting cell. So when they don't have those, you leak, and he was leaking from his nose and his butt and a little bit around his teeth.
it's like the mucous
And
membrane, and
yeah,
and it seems like almost all of these tick-borne illnesses are fatigue, fever, muscle
yep,
aches, yeah, every single one of them. And in severe cases, organ damage, which I
yep.
assume is from not getting them in there and getting them the nutrients that they need.
Also because of the bleeding. If your liver is bleeding and you have a lot of cells dying in the body as it's malfunctioning and the clotting factors, the ghosts of all those cells, the cell membranes of the blood cells, end up messing up the liver. The spleen can get messed up. My spleen's like rock hard. It doesn't do job anymore. I want to tell you something. You were saying about if people were watching from other countries in the world. I received my donation of spirochetes from a tick in Germany. It wasn't from a United States tick. And it wasn't exactly the same disease that we have here. It was Borrelia hempsey, and we usually have Borrelia burgdorferi in New York. So, and I knew I'd been bitten by the tick in Germany, and I thought it wasn't a big deal to worry about, and it was only on me for a little while, but I was really sick from it. So it is relevant to people who don't live in this country, because
So
they
it's
may
found
have.
worldwide.
Yeah, I don't know if it's global everywhere. It might not. I doubt it's in deserts. It's not in our deserts, but wherever it's well forested or field, there's the possibility of it in the temperate areas between Arctic and desert.
I'm going to see if I can find a map of the world.
And just type in tick-borne rather than just Lyme.
That's what I'm doing worldwide. Images here. Yeah, here we go. So let me show you this. I don't know, but it looks like it's predominantly here in America. Wait a second. That might not be the right one, because it says that it's in Alaska as well, and I don't think that's the
Could be.
case.
Where they have mosquitoes and
Oh yeah.
they have mosquitoes and what do you call it? In Alaska, it's less than here. I'm looking at a
Well,
different map.
it
That was
says
just Lyme's, though. It's not all of them.
okay, but this is Lyme. Um, Lyme disease cases. So yeah, this is just Lyme. It looks like I put in tick-borne dog illnesses in the world, and looks like it's still kind of studying it. But yeah, it looks like in Europe, all of Europe,
Yeah, because they're
um,
doing studies on it too.
wild stuff. Looks like just above India here, and in the tropics. I would assume that that's where it's found as well. And so what are ways that you can check yourself and check your dogs, and how do you know, and I've also what's the one that makes people not eat meat? Is there
Say it
one
again?
that where people they get is that Rocky Mountain that people can't eat red meat?
I
Is
have
that
never heard of that, but it doesn't mean it's not true.
I wanna
It
see.
might be. What, is it because they can't eat the proteins anymore afterwards, or?
Yeah. Let me see, not able to eat red meat after tick bite. Alpha-Gal syndrome? Here, I'll show
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Have you
Show me the name, because it sounds like something I might pronounce differently.
says alpha-Gal syndrome, AGS, also red
Oh,
meat allergy, tick bite meat allergy is a serious, potentially life-threatening allergic reaction. After people eat red meat are exposed to other products, particularly alpha gel. So that's interesting. Why am I not?
I'd have to look that up later. I've never heard of it before, but there's so many new allergies. And we're talking about just right now, we're only talking about tick-borne diseases and how they can mess with our neurology, and our neurology runs everything. So uh, it, it, it doesn't just make us achy, it also makes us mental. It doesn't just make us mental, it also makes us dysfunctional. And when I say us, I mean us, the dogs and the horses, because I see it chronically in all three. Still work with horses too.
Look
Um,
at alpha
and they don't
gel
have
intake.
preventatives for horses.
So it says growing evidence shows that this reaction may be triggered by the bite of a Lone Star ticks.
I don't
And is
think
it
we have those here.
in the United States? It says,
Does it
but
say where
other,
in the United States they are? Oh, they're in the South. See the
yep,
map next to it, but
yep,
they're in the North as well.
yeah,
Like in
interesting,
Southern New York, we might have them. Wow.
interesting,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I'm learning something new myself.
There we go.
I
We're all
like
learning
that.
together.
I like to share information and have something new come up. That's great.
Well, Lone Star suggests that makes me think of Texas. But
I think it's on the there's a marking on the tick that they call it that. I'm not sure it's from Texas, but it may be. It may be prevalent there. I'd have
I'm
to
a
look
big
it up.
fan of red meat, so that's
You're
why
not?
no, I am. I
Me
love
too.
it. I love it, and so I was like, "Yeah, I've heard about this," and not just like steaks, but like elk and venison, right? We do a lot of hunting, and I don't know what I would do if I developed an allergy to that. So, potentially dangerous stuff. And I've been down in the Southeast, and I've had ticks all over me. I was in Missouri and out and at Jackie's place and walking around, and I went back and I felt a little tickle on my leg, and
Ugh.
sure enough, there was a tick there, right? So what do we do? What are the protocols to stay safe? And what can we do if we notice that either we ourselves or our dog has been exposed to these ticks?
So, not everybody, I will talk about the part that everybody can agree with first. One of the things when I come in, every night when I take my clothes off, I check myself from top to bottom. I can't really check in my head with my eyes. I check through my fingers because you can feel them if they're on your scalp. It feels like a little thing, and I'm pretty careful about getting the whole scalp. On the dogs, I'm even more meticulous, but my dogs rarely pick up ticks because I treat them the I prophylactically, and where I live, more dogs will die of tick-borne diseases than will have a negative reaction to Bravecto or something like it. The tick-borne diseases, so even Dora came to me with Lyme disease. Spartacus acquired both anaplasmosis on the Bravecto. He only became um, like he was exposed to the anaplasmosis. He never got sick from it. The Rocky Mountain spotted fever, you cannot prevent a dog from getting that by preventing the ticks from getting it. It's a different tick too. That one comes from the big wood tick or dog tick. It doesn't come from the deer tick, which carries all the others. But the teeny tiny ones carry the others. The big ones that can grow the size of a marble when they're full, they carry the Rocky Mountain spotted fever. The dog doesn't have to be bitten by a tick to get that. They can actually step in infected tick feces on the ground, and it will come in through their pads. And I never pulled a tick off that dog in his entire life because I was diligent with the meds because my family had already lost 2 dogs to Lyme's mediated lymphoma. And then we did, studies that we looked up studies from Tufts and other veterinary hospitals locally for how many dogs get sick with fatal Lyme's diseases and how many dogs react to the Lyme's medications. And this is when we were still using pretty primitive stuff like Frontline, and this was quite a number of years ago. And the number of dogs having reactions to even the most barbaric of the medications was infinitesimal compared to the number of dogs dying from the diseases. So here I protect my dogs from the diseases. But I understand if you look somewhere else and you choose not to because the risks are different, that's totally okay too. I mean, people have to make their choices based on their lifestyle and where they live and what they're exposed to. I do go over my dogs. I have lots of black dogs, so it's really hard to see the ticks on them. But they're all short-haired dogs, so I could run the hair backwards, and you could see the white skin underneath, and you can, see if they're there. Check their ears, their feet, their paws. They can get them in their teeth. I've only found that on a client dog. I never found it on one of mine, where the tick is like sort of half embedded under the gum.
Oh, that's creepy, man.
Yeah, it's really creepy. I'm an expert tick remover. My husband. This is another thing. Genetics are not fair when it comes to ticks. I am incredibly immune and unattractive to ticks compared to my husband. We could walk through the same field together and he'll come out with 30 on his legs on the other side and I won't have any.
That's me, man. Like, I think they like me. Is he a ginger by chance? Like,
no, he's not. He's like South American, Ecuadorian, and Connecticut Yankee mix. So I think my dad was Irish and a lot of really high Arctic Norse type of thing. And those creepy pictures of the ticks on the teeth.
Isn't that gnarly?
Yes, it's gross. And yuck.
But look at so now they have this special tool, and I've heard that doesn't their head fall off or something like that, or
the tick embeds its head in the skin, and if we pull off the body without waiting for the tick to pull its head out of the skin, we can, on a human or a dog, we can create a spot for an infection that's pretty nasty. So we always try to pull it out slowly so the tick decides that he doesn't want to leave his head behind, and he pulls it out, then it's free. So you go slowly with pulling them out. I never used one that looks like that. I tend to actually use regular tweezers or my fingers. But,
well, and I've heard about the bullseye. Let me show the bullseye.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a symptom of a dog being infected, huh?
Those look like fly bites to me.
But here's one.
The one that has like a ton of pink bites all over the tummy.
Yeah.
That one there. You're scrolling, not me. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll. The one there looks like a tick bite. The one with the red tool right next to it with the tick in its mouth, that looks like a tick bite. But there are some where it looks like a giant splotchy, like they're uneven, they're not round, and there's 6 or 7 of them on the belly. That's usually black fly bites.
Okay, and it almost looks ringworm almost,
Yeah.
Well, there's one with do you think that this might be the fly bite here?
Yeah, the thought that looks more like fly bites that haven't spread, because they sort of spread out and get diluted and wide, so there's lots of them. The one there, that's probably near the dog's bum or tail, with the black stripe through the middle, that looks like a tick bite gone gnarly.
Oh wow, poor guys, man.
Yeah.
But very interesting and good to know here, you guys. So even though it's not the nicest thing to look at, it's I think it's fascinating stuff here, because this is what we deal with, especially when we're out in the world with our dogs. And this is part of dog husbandry and maintenance, that we have to be the advocates for our dogs and kind of go through and make sure that they're good, because this can really have an effect on their life. And so say your dog you pulled out a tick on your dog. Now, not every tick has these are bacteria that cause the Lyme disease and the spotted.
Right.
So not every tick has the bacteria, or is it
No.
pretty?
There's a high proportion, but not every tick is going to be infectious. But here it's super. If I have kids or dogs or myself or Leonard gets a tick bite and we pull a tick off, you keep an eye on the bite. Check, make sure that they don't get any kind of a rash on it. Any rash at all, we're going to start the medication. But on the dogs and on people, so when my hair was still black, if I got bitten on my head, you might only see, if I got the rash, it might only be a little line around because the bullseye might be in my hair. You might not see it unless you were looking for it. So if I pulled a tick off, Leonard has silver hair. It's easy to find ticks on him if he's got them. If I pull it off, I also will put a circle or something around the spot where we found it, so I can find it again to make sure that it doesn't have a rash for a couple of days. And then we just worry. We don't worry. We just wait. Then if there's symptoms, I would send us to the vet or the doctor and say, hey, we were bitten X amount. We write it down what day. Okay. It's usually him, not me, and typically not the dogs. I find that the better the dog's immune systems are, the less likely they are to get bitten, even dogs that aren't on meds. And the Spartacus's immune system was really sketchy in the beginning of his life. He either already had the anaplasmosis and it weakened him. But if you look at pictures of him when he's 4 years old, he looks less healthy than he did at 12. At 12, he looks like a healthy old dog with full weight, full structure. Everything looks good. At 4, it's obvious that he's got something going on. He's underweight and anxious. That thrum of neurology was happening. Okay. And I recognize the thrum in human patients sometimes, and the dogs when they're doing everything as possible to control some level of tension or anxiety, but it's almost palpable. You can feel it, that it's uncontrollable. It's something like internal, but caused by not the dog's own body, and then get them tested and they're positive. Be really, really sensitive to all of your dog's moods and how they look when they're healthy and when there's changes to that health. And the sooner you can get treatment for something, the less likely it is to have any sort of catastrophic lasting effects. Spartacus I think he was 7 when he got the Rocky Mountain spotted fever. He lived to 13, but he was blind with a drooping lip from a stroke caused by that high fever that first day when I took him to the vet. It can be catastrophic. If I hadn't gotten him there, he'd probably bleed to death on the inside. So, and he went from
know your dog, and know your dog's
health, and don't.
Something's off. Don't just dismiss it if something's off. Like watch them and take them in if there's any doubt. We have some comments piling up, so I'm going to go out to our comment section and see what we got here. Okay.
Yeah. Because I can't see the Facebook because I'm on StreamYard.
Angela says hello, my dear friend Valerie.
I love you.
Stanley, Amy, I'm looking for a friend to rescue. Hope I find a dog that chooses me. Good luck with that. My old lady almost died from ehrlichiosis. What is that?
Ehrlichiosis. I know, sorry. She lives near me.
And she had a fever and was acting off. See, right there we go. Yep. We're acting off. Thank God she responded very well to the antibiotics. She received IV antibiotics and a script for pills. I love hiking, but the tick population is out of control. They can be extremely difficult to find in fur. Yeah. Right. So be mindful. Mississippi, MISSISSIPPI.
Oh, the heartworm.
Fairfield County, Connecticut. So she's dealing with it. California is not so much. But we also we might have some other things. Look who's here. The man.
Hey, Nelson.
So he's at the center. Everybody check out. I put up a link to the human. He's canine human. What's the R again? I'm all resource, but it's
Relationship Institute.
Relationship. Here, I'm writing it down. Canine Human Relationship Institute. I don't know why I'm blanking on that. Sorry, Nelson. But I recommend, Nelson, especially, with the Silver School, new Silver School students. I mean, it's not a gold school program, but I definitely recommend after Silver checking out some of the classes that the relationship center has, the institute has. They're down in Texas.
Yep.
It's hands-on. You're going to be working with the dogs. And Nelson, I got to have you back on here, man. It's been too long, and I want to catch up with what's going on too.
I'm going to be. I'll be in Blue Ridge with Nelson in October. There's a bunch of us going down. Angela will be there too. We're rooming together again. We're going to be doing a new class that a lot of people who've graduated from the program as certified relationship-based trainers have, and training instructors. There's a new course that has been changed, so we're going back to take it again because it has a new format for the new students, and we want to know it all. So I'm really looking forward to going back. It's been too long since I was down there.
Awesome. I can't wait.
My favorite places on earth.
Yeah, and Nelson's one of my favorite people on earth too. Mm-hmm. So he's definitely a mentor that I recommend everybody. Yeah, family, absolutely. We are infested by Lone Star ticks in the deep south. I can't talk tonight.
That's okay.
White dot on the back of the tick. Okay, that's the Lone Star. That's where they get the name. Ticks need a blood meal on host for Bravecto to kill it.
That it has to bite and get some blood in it, otherwise the Bravecto doesn't kill it. It doesn't shoot it off the dog like a collar. Well, the Seresto collars work the same way. It's just that how the medicine gets into the dog is different. The Seresto collar, the oils are absorbed off the collar into the skin, so that if the dog gets bitten on the tail, it still dies, whether it's near the collar or at the other end of the dog, because it's a systemic treatment. The Bravecto goes in the mouth. Some of the others go, on the fur between the shoulders. I prefer the oral one now because I've had less side effects with their skin with it, but everybody has, and tons of my clients are on the Seresto collar. I don't use it because my dogs pull on each other's collars. Okay. I don't want them eating it.
Well, and you want to use high quality medicine, because I've heard some of these tick shampoos or flea shampoos have actually caused some neurological damage with dogs that are like the low quality ones. So make sure you don't skimp when it comes to this stuff.
And also there's bootleg Seresto collars all over the internet. People should buy that from their vet, or Chewy.com probably is reliable.
Yeah. Good point. David Beck. Hey, Dave. Impressive guest. Hey, look who's here. George.
Hey, George.
Praying for you, buddy. I'm glad to hear that you're back home from the hospital and doing well, and hope you get out in that car of yours and back to building those engines, man. Just sending you love always, buddy. Jackie says, I was told it's a good idea to keep the killed tick in a bag in the freezer in case something came up after
that is a good idea, because if they need to decide what kind of a tick it was or whether or not the tick was infected for some reason, they can check the tick.
Interesting, man. So if you find a tick on your dog,
the tick was, because they don't all carry the same diseases.
Keep it in a bag, you know. Jorian says, if I get bit, I'm going to urgent care and starting doxycycline. Did I do that right? Doxycycline?
Yeah.
Okay. It's nasty stuff, but I'm still taking toxic cycling. It's nasty stuff, as she says.
It's terrible, but it's effective.
And what is that for? Just preventative, that you don't get the spread of the bacteria?
Because I've already had more antibiotics than, I don't know what the name of a good antibiotics company is, but I've had them all. I don't want to ever take them if I'm not sure I need them, but that's because I already have had MRSA, and MRSA is methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. It's one of the superbugs. It colonizes in people when they're critical in the hospital. They can give you bad pneumonia, kills people because there are no antibiotics that work well to get rid of it. An excess of antibiotics creates those kinds of superbugs. Here, where I live, I understand why people want to pre-treat before they have symptoms, because the symptoms can come on fast and awful. And when you're still super young and your body is possibly, if you're not taking a ton of things for sinuses and a ton of things for a whole mess of other aches and illnesses, taking doxy when you get a tick bite, as long as you're not getting bitten every month, isn't a bad thing.
Okay.
But I just do the tracking to make sure if I need it or not, or Leonard does. I haven't been bitten by a tick in a really long time.
How long does the duration till onset of symptoms occur?
Oh, it's variable. You could have the bullseye in a day or so, and you could not. It could be weeks or even months. And sometimes you carry the antibody to the exposure, but you don't ever get symptomatic. So I've had two dogs that have. Dora came to me with a positive Lyme titer, but they said, so low that we don't need to treat it, which nowadays I would have said, treat it, please. I don't, if they come positive with anything, I'm asking them to treat it now. But most of the time they prefer not to treat it if it's super low and asymptomatic. And hers eventually faded without treatment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So the body just kind of kicked it
Pipes
out of
off.
it.
Yeah.
Fought it off. Okay. Yeah, it's such a marvelous thing, our body, our immune system. Hey, look who else is here.
Hello, Bart.
Hey, Bart. Glad you're here, buddy. We also have Jessica. Jessica, love ya. And hi, I need to come out and see your place again, Jorin says. Jessica McCarty. Hi, guys. Hi, Jessica. Nelson piped in, said certificates should be not used on Siberian Huskies, or Certifect should not be used on Siberian Huskies and Collie. Nearly lost 2 of my Huskies.
I don't know that, Med.
Certifect.
Yeah, I'm going to look that one up. I want to write it down.
Certifect. Okay, good to know.
Never heard of it before.
Certifect, and some stuff has adverse reactions on some dogs, and this is all, a lot of it is
some of the
new.
primitive dogs, there's things I will not give Dora that I would give to, like, she's like the Husky. She's not just desert primitive because she's half Irish Wolfhound. She's also Malamute and hybrid. So she's super primitive through that Arctic line and super primitive through the desert line. Both of those kinds of dogs are really, really sensitive to anesthesia, pain meds, neurology meds, and everything. So we've got to be really careful with it. It's not just by weight when it comes to primitive dogs.
I mean, that makes me think about like coyotes and wolves in the wild too. Like if they get the same type of tick-borne illnesses that these domesticated dogs are susceptible to.
They do, but they're less affected if their immune's good.
And same thing with horses and deer, right? Deer in the wild, and then horses, they don't really have is it the same thing with the horses, with the stiff joints and the lethargic?
Yeah,
and
definitely. Maybe more so even than the dogs. The horses are, I don't want to say delicate because some of them are strong as mules, to be on, to mix metaphors, but but they're more apt to display symptoms than a dog is. A dog is going to try to appear stoic. Most dogs will try to hide symptoms. I never trust that a dog that looks like it's in pain isn't already in awful pain if it's chronic. I mean, not like he got hit and broke his leg. I mean, like pain that looks, I'm uncomfortable. I'm unenthusiastic. I'm not, it's a feeling again,
head
like that
down,
trauma.
head down, tail down.
Yeah, if they're looking like
Energy
they're in
level
pain
is
or stiff,
lower.
I'm definitely going to think they're in more pain than a human would be. Humans can be we're able to vocalize in words how we're feeling. Dogs don't. And also we're not worried about getting kicked out of the pack because we're ill. They'll take us to the hospital and we get better. With primitive animals and animals that live in the wild, they may just decide to kick the sick ones or the old ones into the neutral territory between packs because that's where the predators are, so they don't want to get kicked out because they're unwell, so they hide it.
Strength in numbers. And the other thing that I look for in my dogs is if they're, as you say, hide it, I'm also looking if my dogs are hiding. Right. If they go under stuff, or I'm like, what are you under that shelf for? What's going on with you? Right. Or like you don't typically go there to lay down. You're usually over here, out in the open, just kind of hiding away, that is another indicator that your dog there might be just something off with that animal,
Yeah.
right? Now, you say diarrhea. Is there any, like, sometimes I could smell if my dogs are sick. Like,
We're poo experts. There's healthy poo smell and there's unhealthy poo smell. There's something, something that he shouldn't have, vomit smell, and there's, oh yeah, that's some bile. So whatever comes out of our dog, we should be familiar what it smells like when it's healthy and what it smells like when it isn't. I mean, there's a symphony of urine smells by my place. You know, when the dogs are going, some are in heat, some are not. If they've over concentrated because they didn't drink enough, it'll smell a little off. You know, pee that sat overnight in a kennel, whatever, is going to smell entirely different than, you know, a new, fresh, sweet smelling, though it still smells like urine. I think it's important to be really familiar with the smells of our dogs,
right
because
now,
all of the smells, the ones that come out as well as the ones on the surface.
I say they smell. It smells like sick in here. You know, it
Yeah,
smells like like they're sick or
right.
something, and it's just like a foul, just kind of off smell. And it could be them just passing gas, or it could be coming off their breath too. That's another
Yep.
indicator. It's just their breath, and sometimes even dogs with kidney failure have a very distinct smell as well. And I can even smell
Diabetes.
when a dog's about ready to pass away. Like,
Yeah.
I can smell, and it's almost like a rot, like there's something going on, that they're definitely unwell, and they're close to that age or something. And usually, man, I've been spot on with it. Like, I know when a dog's about ready to go, and I kind of watch them and take care of them. And sure enough, I've seen it happen where, then they start to actively die. And it is part of the process of owning these dogs. They don't live that long when we really look at it, and especially the larger the breed, just like Valerie was saying earlier about the dog that was experiencing hypertension and the pneumonia, and he was 8 years old, but he was a Great Dane.
Right.
And that can happen. Like,
Right.
I've had a larger breeds, Irish Wolfhounds, die of old age at 6 years of age,
Yep.
and the larger breeds, why do you think that is? Just, it's like almost like a form of giganticism in human beings, where do they just keep growing, or is it
So
just a
in our
larger?
large breeds, we have a lot of people that aren't being incredibly. So there's two issues. So we have, in particular, I'm thinking of the Irish Wolfhounds and the Great Danes because they're the ones I have the most experience with. I have Bernese Mountain Dogs and some Saint Bernards in our program that they're very well bred, so their hearts match their bodies and their long lines of history in their lines. So I don't even consider them at the same risk that we see with the Great Danes and the Irish Wolfhounds, because they're constantly, with the Danes, they often are breeding for size and colors, and the dogs end up with hearts that aren't at capacity for the size of the dog. And it's a big problem with Irish Wolfhounds because they had a genetic bottleneck right after World War One. People couldn't afford to feed them. They couldn't afford to keep them. People were more focused on their personal survival than breeding, fancy, exquisite, large, giant dogs. And they certainly weren't hunting with them on the same level that they did when they first, brought the breed into life. So that they decided, there was a certain army captain, I think he was, that wanted to bring the Irish Wolfhound back, and he bred them back from a small amount of dogs that were left, and some Mastiff and Great Dane, and he mixed a bunch of them and got very close to the old Irish Wolfhound lines. My dog Dora, her Irish Wolfhound portion comes from old Irish Wolfhound lines. I was shocked to find that out when I had her DNA done. There's very few dogs around carrying it. But when they bred them for size, they weren't able to breed the hearts to be as large as was necessary to carry that safely. So a lot of Irish Wolfhounds die of cardiomyopathy because as this too little heart is pumping to keep up with this gigantic body, it eventually starts to go thin-walled because it's just working too hard.
All right.
And so yeah, but all canines, think about it, all of them have really short telomeres or something, because you look at the difference between the lifespan of a tortoise and a wolf, for 12 years to 112. And birds, there are birds that live over 100 years. I don't know
Well,
what it
there's a
is.
genetic study out of Asia and it traced it down to the telomeres of smaller breeds live longer,
Yes.
right? And so the
Mhm.
smaller the dog, the longer typically they live into the 20 year
And it
span.
isn't just about them being larger, it's also about them being healthier much longer if they're bred well. My brother has a Chi- a Jap no a Chinese crested, a naked Chinese crested, who's like 18 years old now. I think Nelson has a 20-year-old dog.
I have an 18-year-old, almost 20 or 19-year-old dog now,
Yeah.
beagle cross, right? And so there's something about those beagles, man. They're just stubborn, stubborn with life as well as just
Yeah.
everything to do with the life that they live too. Now, let me look at back here. I want to get back to these tick-borne diseases because that's what we were
Sure.
focusing on too. So,
That's cool.
um, we we talked about the Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain. Now, have you heard of Powassa?
I've heard of it. I don't know a lot about it.
Okay. Seems like that's relatively rare, right? But serious, and that one causes seizures a
Hmm.
lot of times. Babesiosis,
Babesiosis. Yeah.
babesiosis, microscopic parasite, similar symptoms as malaria.
It has a different shape than the spirochete. It's not a spirochete. It looks more like, it's almost like a cubic with the shape of the animal is different, but its effects are similar.
Okay. And this stuff is lifelong and it helps, or I mean, how can you tell if your dog is affected? You said titers earlier. So
Oh,
there's
they check. So I have my dogs tested every year. If they had symptoms, I bring them in sooner. They get tested for the Ehrlichia, babesiosis, anaplasmosis, Lyme, and I'm missing one. There's 5.
let me see. Ehrlichiosis, anaplasmosis. Did you say that?
Anaplasmosis, babesiosis, Ehrlichiosis, Lyme, and the Rocky Mountain spotted fever.
Which is
We don't test for
rickettsia.
Rickettsia is in the family of the Rocky Mountain spotted fever.
Okay.
I'm stuttering tonight. I'm sorry.
I wonder why they call it spotted fever. Is that because of the bullseye?
That it's some part of old lore about the disease. You know what it's probably from? This is a guess. This is just a guess from a medical perspective, because it causes the skin rashes that when you have low platelets, when it kills off your ability to clot, you're going to get bruises all over your body from it. Could be it. If I can, here's my
It says
losing a lot of phone in the dark.
it's a dog or it's a spotted rash. Yep.
Yeah,
It's a spotted
so
rash.
yeah,
Yep.
that probably happens from like petechiae because blood vessels are breaking into the skin.
That's so wild, man.
Yeah.
And then now when we do remove the ticks, I remember when I was in Idaho, we didn't have too many ticks, but we had them. Now I also see breast cancer.
Related
Huh.
to Lyme, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
So it's a huge amount of inflammation associated with that neurological storm.
And so everything, I mean, it stops the body's regulatory system in order to fight cancers as well, I would
Yep.
assume. So yeah, fever, rash, spotted, and so what tools do you recommend to get these ticks off? When you see a tick, how do we remove it?
There's special tick removing thing that normally it looks like it's round, so you can hold. I'm trying to make so the camera can see my hands right. It's round on one end and almost shaped like
Here,
that,
I'll do a
like
little
that.
screen.
So it's pointed on this end, and where my fingers are circular here. This is so you
This
can
thing
hold it.
here.
That's it, right there. Thank you. That's way better than me doing weird things with my hands. I find that one to be the easiest one to use of the pre-bought ones. Uh, I've been in the ER and as a medic, we learned to do it with the tweezer, but I don't recommend everybody do it that way. I've been practicing it forever with it. So,
It's a
but those
tick
are
key.
that's what we keep for our staff to use. A
Okay.
tick key. Yes, that's the right name for it.
I'm going to put a link to a tick key in the comments below, just so we have that as
Make
well.
sure when you use them, you pull slowly enough that the tick wants to pull its head out. And then there's the other way. I mean, there's ways that if they're really stubborn, sometimes people will put heat, not burn the tick. You don't want it to die in the in the skin while it's still in the skin. But if you heat it up, it might heat like something hot behind its butt, not touching it with it, but just enough to make him want to pull it out. Or I don't know. People used to talk about putting oil on it, but I don't do that. Makes it too hard to pull it out. And then I always treat the spot with antibiotic ointment, the triple antibiotic.
So I have an interesting question here, and it's a good question, Gina. How do ticks benefit us? Just wondering, because they're hard to like.
They don't. There's no way. I haven't found a single good reason to like ticks ever. Other than they're like good conversation starters. I don't know. I can't think of anything else.
I guess they feed birds. That's what.
Yes. And my chickens like them. They say they're tasty. My chickens like them a lot. They'll clean them. If I let them run free, they'll pick them up out of the grass. Guinea hens are phenomenal tick eaters. Possums, I never chase a possum out of my yard. A possum love ticks. They'll eat a zillion of them a day.
Really? Okay, so let me show this here too. We have, let me see if I can pull this up here so we can watch. And I want to see if we can watch this here with the tick removal. So they actually have the tick key along in the collar with
Does
the
that have the
tag.
dog's name on it? Is that his tag?
Yeah.
Like it's a special like custom tick key with a tag. That's kind of cool.
So they found a tick on their dog, right? And so they're going to show us how. Dude, that's so gnarly, man.
I'm gonna have nightmares tonight.
And then they sit and then they wait. Oh, they just pulled that sucker off, huh? So they might have not waited long enough, and that tick looked like it was pretty engorged too.
Yeah, so they're easier to remove when they're full. They're more happy to pop off when they're full.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because they're almost if their legs have disappeared into their body because the body swells around the legs, they're ready to pop off.
So it looked like that. I mean, well, maybe that might be the shadow there, but I thought it looked like it was already starting to get red.
That one's pretty full if it's a deer tick, but it was gray. Deer ticks to me, I usually get them when they're black. That might have been a dog tick.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wild stuff, man. We don't have them up here in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm thankful. I mean, we do, but we don't have them that much. Like every once in a while I'll find one. And so and do you check while you're out hunting, or is there, now this is one of the questions that I had to ask too, is there certain times of the year
this year they started coming out before it was even warm out? But so if we had a very warm winter this year for us. We didn't have a ton of snow. We didn't have any serious 3 weeks long under zero weather this year. So they came out fairly early. When things are growing and bursting, they're out. If it gets super hot, I think they slow down in August a little bit, but then they come back for the fall. Yeah, they're just there. So I think the best thing to do is to wear pants that you can tuck your socks out around them so they don't go up your pants, because they will go up your pants and bite you in the crotch. If I'm hiking, when I hike, I wear really thin pants, lightweight pants, though I'm not overheated, that aren't super tight, and stick the socks or boots, the pants into the boots, and then shake out the top of the boots before I take them off so that they don't get on my feet. And I've climbed many of the high peaks in the Adirondacks and have camped and slept on the ground in a zillion places, but the taking care to not get them on your skin in the first place is the best bet.
Well, and are they like fleas where they will go to the top of grasses and then they try to like grab onto you? Is that
I do think that because my husband will get them. They'll be on the like the bottom of his shorts as he's walking. They're already on the tops of his legs as he's walking through. I don't think they're sitting on the ground. If you're walking through tall grasses, they're going to be elevated in the plants.
let me see, how do ticks get on dogs? That's what I'm finding out here.
Oh, if they're on the deer, we have lots of large mammals that are wild here and birds. If they're on any of those animals and they drop off, they're going to land wherever they land. It could be in a tree over your head. Raccoons go up trees. They could fall off the raccoons above us. So I'm pretty sure that you're more likely to get them when you're on the ground, but I wouldn't rule out that you could climb a tree and get one.
Yeah, it says that they like to go on leaves, the end of
Yep.
leaves here.
Hmm.
And then they can sense a warm body.
Mm.
And let me see here. Let me see if I could share this. But
We're
and I'll go to
having this conversation for like 3 years. I'm so glad we're doing it.
well, I think that's important because I find it fascinating. And what I find out too is like, especially towards the end of summer, and once we have like one cold day in the fall, that's when fleas explode.
Oh,
Right, and I'm assuming that's when ticks explode too, because it kinda makes them more active to get on a body before the winter happens, right? And especially if it's a hard winter. But here in the Pacific Northwest, our winters are pretty mild, and so we
right.
have, like, Hercules fleas up here. We don't have ticks, but we get pretty good flea infestations here. And I'm wondering if, like, in down south with the Lone Star tick, if around fall time, if they see like an explosion of the ticks, just once the cold snap hits, then that's kind of an indicator that they need to get into another body or another type of environment, right? Um, Let me go back to the comments here. What's up? Patrick Lockett is here. Hey guys, looking
Hi,
great.
Patrick.
Hope you're doing good in Florida. Pulled off hundreds with my fingers. So is there a problem with pulling them off with your fingers? And, is there
It's not
anything
recommended since I'm a medical person. I can't say, yeah, go ahead. It's fine. I do.
because you're
I
dealing with
do.
bloodborne pathogens, right?
Yeah,
And
I try to do it with my nails.
okay,
No, it's not a bloodborne pathogen. It's a bloodborne pathogen after it's been injected into you. The tick itself is a creeping, crawling outside your body pathogen.
okay.
The 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 diseases are bloodborne pathogens. So it gets into your blood and then it'll transport it to all different portions of your neurology and your body parts for it to want to grow on.
Well, and Jackie's a bird hunter, and that's where I love, and man, you're walking all the time,
Right.
right? And even when you're bird hunting, I've one of my old mentors in bird world, he's like, look, you want to start out kind of chilly because it's not going to last that long because we're moving so much,
Right.
and we're going through so many different environments, and we're out in the wilderness, and sometimes we're walking up thickets, and the birds know, look, if I hide up high, then so we're walking up and down hills all over the place. So it's especially for the bird people, I can see this as being a problem. Had a hatch on our boat when living in Mexico. It was disgusting.
Hatch
What's a
what?
hatch? So what?
A hatch is sometimes when a whole mess of
Ugh.
spiders or ants or scorpions decide to hatch out of their eggs. Fish too, they call it a hatch when they're all birthing.
Oh my goodness.
They
Oh,
are.
I don't even want to show this because it's so gnarly, but I have to. I have to, dude. We have to see this. So, are you ready? Prepare yourself.
Oh, I'm not gonna close my eyes.
Look at this. Look at all. Can you see this?
Yeah, but what are they?
That's a tick. This is a tick right here. And look at all the eggs.
Oh, okay. Bill, I think you still owe me a drink from the last silver school. Now you owe me
Oh, I'll give
10.
you a drink. Yeah, this is gnarly, man. A tick gave birth to thousands of babies.
No, 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 no. That's nasty.
Sorry, guys. I had to see it too.
That looked
But
like lobster eggs. It was gross.
Yeah. I mean, but if you look at lobsters, they're the bugs of the ocean, right? And that's what
Yeah.
even when I was in
When
Massachusetts,
ticks are this big and tasty, I might like them too, but they're
that's what
like
they called
lobsters for
them.
chickens or something.
They call them bugs. When I was eating, I
Yeah,
have actually have a family member that lobster goes out on the boat, and
yes,
they were bugs. That's what they called them, and they were wicked,
yeah.
wicked good bugs.
I
So
had a friend, he passed away, died on a dive trip. He was, no, I'm sorry, he passed away in Florida running. He was a super healthy guy and he died running, but he was a lobsterman out of Freeport. And we used to go up every year and help him pull his traps and spend a couple of days lobstering and hanging out on the coast. And that was awesome.
oh,
And yes, they look like they are, I think they're definitely bugs, sea bugs.
Sheila says that Sawyer makes a product you spray on your clothing, not your body, that repels ticks for a few weeks and several
Yeah.
washing. Okay.
There's a few really good ones for humans to use on their
Okay.
clothes like that. Trying to think of the name of it. The name sounds toxic as heck, but it's actually a good product as long as it's on your clothes and not your skin. Pyrethrin, maybe? Not
Uh,
sure.
Me and my dogs. Yep. Yep. Tick gave birth to thousands of babies. It's gnarly stuff, but this is important because it is part of life with our dogs and part of
Yeah.
life of just existing out in the wild. And I want to find. Let me find why we mentioned it. I'm going to find the spray that Sheila says Sawyer. And then we've been chatting a little bit. Do you know of anything that I'm leaving out or something that you would like to mention um, about
When our dogs have it, or people, when we have tick-borne things, they're sore. Their musculature hurts, their neurology hurts, their joints ache. And I think it's important to give them a rest, but it's not like they have heartworm where if they're moving around too much, they're going to throw a stroke from dying worms or something. That you have to keep them on rest. It's good to keep them once the fevers are gone and the medicine starts to work. It's good. I think it's
oh, did you guys hold on? I think you're breaking up here. Well, there she goes. I think that that was a good time to yeah, audio is not good. So let me find a Sawyer spray. I'm going to put up a link to the Sawyer spray, and if Valerie comes back to us, then I'll put her up. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode talking about ticks. Here's a link to that spray. And also, I have a link to my Patreon page if you guys appreciate these live streams that I do. Thank you all who support me on Patreon. You guys are awesome. And I got a link. If you guys want to support me there, you can for as little as $5 a month. It looks like Valerie's trying to come back. Says device is not connected. Now, Valerie, the reason we were going to go on a little bit earlier, but Valerie had some thunderstorms in her area, and I assume possibly that she might have lost connection because of the thunderstorms or what's going on. So I'm going to bid you all adieu, and check out the comment section. We talked about a lot of stuff from we have that tick removal key. I found the Sawyer permethrin is the spray, and just stay safe out there, you guys, and remember to to check your dog for ticks, to check yourself for ticks. And I hope that this episode was helpful to you. It sure was helpful to me. I'm a little skeezed out because of the the hatch, and Valerie's still trying to come back, but it doesn't look like your devices are not working, Valerie. It says device not connected. So maybe try on your iPhone, Valerie, if you want to say goodbye to everybody. Otherwise, if I don't see you back on here, ooh, she might be here. I don't know. I'll see if we can hear her. Valerie, can you?
There I
Oh,
am. Sorry, my iPhone died. I had to go to the dog training phone, which is Samsung.
oh, there you go. Well, I'm kind of wrapping it up
That's okay.
anyway.
I heard you saying goodbye on this one before I hit the wrong button. But I'm glad I got a chance to say goodbye to everybody, and thank you so much for watching. And I hope that you found this helpful.
Yeah, and how do people find you now that you're back here? If they want to, if they're in the area, I know that you have a training facility. You're an excellent trainer.
Thank you.
You're a NAPOPO Gold multiplicator as well. So let's talk about how people can find you and go to your classes.
NewPulseDogTraining.com.
How do you spell that?
I'm going to type it in the chat.
Okay, yeah, type it in the chat and then yeah. And then you guys check her out, and if you have any questions or if there's anything that we've left out, let me know. And also check out my Patreon and share this with as many people with dogs that you can't. Oh, there she goes again. Oh, and check it out, you guys. I got a background. So this is the first time that I've done the live stream with a background, and I like it. So I'll be doing a background, kind of keeps the distraction from my room that I'm in, and here she's back.
Yeah, I'm not pushing any more buttons.
That's what happens with the iPhone stuff. But a New Paul dog training here, I'll put it up in the comments, okay? And where are you located at exactly?
I'm about an hour and a half north of New York City on the east side and the west side of the Hudson River.
Okay, here I spelled
Yeah,
it right
and New
here.
Paltz, town of New Paltz.
Oh, that would make sense since
Yeah.
it's New Paul dog training. Copy. And then you do work with the monks of New Skeet?
I help with their workshops. I go to church there. So I help with their workshops, and I volunteer there and go to church there and have really dear friends there. And Mark Goldberg and Brother Christopher do their workshops there, and I always volunteer to help them with the training. And for their upcoming book, they came to our center and did a lot of pictures for the book is about training your dog through play, and they use a lot of our equipment and our beautiful green environment to take pictures of dogs in play with the owners in training and play. And yeah, it's beautiful up there. They're about 2 hours north of me.
Okay, well, maybe I might come up there one of these days and
That would
see
be great. You'd like it. It's very, very peaceful. It's
I would love to go to church with you as well.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
And spiritual. I love going to church there. The music's amazing. And church is amazing. So is the company.
The hymns are what make the church a lot of times, and I think that I love the nostalgic of I mean, I'm Catholic myself, so I go to Catholic church, and I think, I love the rock and roll and I love music, but I just love the old style hymns, right?
Yeah.
And
There, the entire liturgy's chanted or sung. It's in song,
okay.
chant song and hymn type songs, and it's beautiful. And in the church is constructed to reflect the music in an amazing way. So it's really amazing. I did a lot of healing there after I was sick, so I'm very attached to it.
It's funny how that can happen,
Yeah. And the mountains are incredibly wonderful to hike. There's tons of wildlife up there and tons of space for thinking and dreaming and doing. It's really special.
Fantastic. Monks of New Skeet was the first training book I've ever read years ago. I recommend, well, I got to put it up in the comments now. The Monks of New Skeet, the puppy book that they have here.
How to Raise a Perfect Puppy, is that the name of it?
Yep. Monks of New Skeet puppy training. It is, which one is it? The Art of Raising a Puppy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put a link up here.
And How to Be Your Dog's Best Friend. I think that's the other one.
Yeah, but this one is one that I'm very big fan of. The Art of Raising a Puppy, right?
My vet gave that to me when I purchased my first dog, and he was my vet for 30 years. And I purchased my first dog, and I had graduated from my family's dogs from my parents to my own. He gave me that book.
I highly recommend it to all my people. I have it in here somewhere. I just don't know exactly where it's at. And if you do see Brother Christopher and Mark, give them my love.
I will.
I know them both, and they're big fans of both of theirs as well. And ladies and gentlemen, on my Patreon page, I just purchased a 360 camera. So I got a camera from all my Patreon supporters that should be arriving here shortly. So when I go out on the road, I'll be able to capture more quality content and bring you some of my experiences. And I'll be posting a little bit more on the Patreon. I've been taking a little break recently, so stay tuned over there. And thank you very much for your support. And Valerie, thank you for your time this evening.
Oh, I'm honored, Bill. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and we'll say goodbye to everybody here, and then I'll say goodbye to you in the studio, okay?
Okay. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.